Tell that to the almond.
Oh, damn it, the almond. No, the almond isn't a nut, though, is it? It's
No, an almond, almond's a nut. A peanut's not a nut.
Hello and welcome to episode 266 of the Rockstar CMO FE Marketing Podcast, a proud member of the Marketing Podcast Network. I hope you're well and you're staying as sane as you feel need to be. I'm your host, Ian Truscott. I'm not a rockstar, but I am a CMO. And on this podcast, I chat with a band of marketing chums who share their marketing street knowledge, which I hope will bring out the rockstar marketer in you. This week, Jeff Clark and I continue with the topic of a CMO's first 90 days, stepping through each of our 5 marketing fundamentals. This week, we're focusing on the Masterplan. But first, we need to pay the bar tab. I'll be back in a moment.
We'll be right back. After this word.
We'll be right back.
After this word. We'll be right.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more to reach the professionals who are more likely to find your ad relevant. Plus, with 1 billion members on LinkedIn, that means you'll have access to 130 million decision makers and 10 million C-level executives. That's a lot of millions of the right people. Get started today and see how you can reach the right buyers with LinkedIn's enhanced targeting tools. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Robbie Samuels hosts the On the Schmooze podcast. Robbie, tell listeners what to expect from the show.
Since 2015, I've interviewed entrepreneurs who overcame challenges to achieve success in their field or industry. Tune in to On the Schmooze to listen as I ask deep questions to elicit untold stories about leadership and networking.
And where can people subscribe?
Find the show at ontheschmooze.com or on marketingpodcast.net, or just search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard them. Go subscribe.
Ian, welcome to the studio. And I know you're probably outside enjoying spring because this is, I think, the first episode we're recording in spring.
Mm-hmm.
But come on into the dark studio and we can record another one.
Well, that's good. I mean, you're a professional because you've introduced the weather at the same time as introducing the show.
Well, I didn't say that the weather was actually what it was. I just said it was. Anyway.
Yeah, she did just express the time of year if we're going to be pedantic. Yes, it's spring. We've had a little bit of sunshine actually, so you're not far off. And I did try and do some reading and do it in the garden today, but it was a little too chilly, but we're in for some better weather, I think. But we're doing that thing again where we're going to give a weather report on the day we're recording when actually this is going to go live next week. Although not too far away, is it?
Yeah.
Week and a half away.
It'll only be getting nicer and warmer. Nicer. So
yeah. So how are you? You had what did we do? We did Kathy last week, didn't we? So
yes,
we've had a little break, and that was only a break because of the schedule, rather than you haven't been anywhere and done anything fun, have you?
I haven't done anything interesting since we last talked. Other than preparing for this episode.
That's true, yeah. And all right, so let me start the ball rolling on this episode then. So as I mentioned the week before, well, I haven't mentioned this bit yet. The week before last, before Kathy interrupted us, we kicked off a new series focusing on applying our 5 effing fundamentals to a CMO's first 90 days, which we also decided was a good everyday advice that we could take stock, that we should, rather, I can't read my own notes, take stock of from time to time. And then we recognized we couldn't cover all 5 fundamentals in one episode. And those 5 fundamentals are, of course, the master plan, the knowledge, the story, the campaign, and the machine. And so last time we focused on the knowledge, tuning into the business, the needs of the business and of our target audience. And there's I'm not doing very well with this script. We identified there's a lot of listening in our first 90 days, but we need to hit the ground running, gain some credibility with some tactical quick wins and low-hanging fruit while laying the foundations for more long-term success, which is where the master plan comes in. So that's our focus for this week. So aside from my rubbish introduction reading of the script, what say you, Jeff?
I was, it's funny, every once in a while you say something, I'm like, why is it always low-hanging fruit? Why isn't why isn't it like low-hanging vegetables or nuts or something like that? But it's certainly one of those
because
metaphors.
Nuts don't grow on trees.
Oh, I disagree. They do. Tell that to the almond.
Damn it, the almond. No, the almond isn't a nut though, is it?
No, almond's a nut. A peanut's not a nut. A peanut grows on the ground.
Oh, that's right. It's a member of the pea family, isn't it? The peanut.
Yeah, it's a legume. Anyway, we're really going off. Sorry, I didn't even mean to do that. But it is we're talking about the master plan. So it is great to come into a job, with a master plan like all baked, ready to go on day one. But that is not reality. In fact, really, as everyone knows, no job is one you can start, and you're hitting full steam on your first day in the job. So, once you get in the seat, you meet your colleagues outside of the interview process, you start getting flooded with emails and texts. You're like, oh my gosh, now I'm starting to understand the reality of what this job is all about. And so, which is one of the reasons why we started with the knowledge first in the series, because, it's kind of not that everything is sequential, but it's kind of the first thing to think about. So, but you do need to start thinking about your plan, your master plan. And so, that's what we're endeavoring to do, is to figure out how does it apply to these first 90 days.
Yeah. I love that conversation about nuts, though. So we're going for low-hanging nuts. And almonds.
That could have a different connotation, so we won't go there.
Particularly as, the CMO's things are often on the block. But that would... that takes us down a route where, that would be the gentleman CMOs. So anyway, and also there is a bit of structure to this because we identified 5 steps we actually put into the ebook that we wrote. What was that, a year ago?
Yep.
And I'll include a link to that in the show notes. So let's explore what we can achieve in those crucial first 90 days for the master plan. What's number 1, Jeff? Number
1, and as you're kind of inferred, is that the steps we're going to go through are similar to what we have in the ebook. We're just trying to say, what about it can we actually accomplish in the first 90 days? And certainly the first thing is discovery on how you align with the business objectives. How's marketing going to align, and how's the CMO going to align? And depending on when you join, you may, I don't know, maybe you joined at the beginning of a fiscal year and somebody actually delivered an up-to-date business plan and a 3-year growth strategy and all that kind of stuff. But most often you have to kind of make one up because you're probably in between cycles of when those materials are created. So your discovery process is trying to understand, meeting with the CMO and other on the exec team, is what are we trying to accomplish as a business? Working with your marketing leadership team to say, what is it that we think we can do? And that discovery, the good thing about our first 90 days is usually they give you a little bit of leeway to say you can still be working on the input process here. But it would be good to kind of like document or update, what you think those current business objectives are. Again, work with the leadership team to determine how's marketing going to impact that. You're likely going to be assessed. You'll likely assess whether the initial challenges are about brand, are they about demand, are they about skills? again, these are things that could have come up in the interview process, but now you're inside, and so you're kind of understanding what the reality of that is. And you're starting to develop what will be, I think, your annual plan or your longer term marketing strategy, and determining, what within these 90 days can we start to think about accomplishing? What can we report back that, at the end of my first 90 days, here's my assessment, which is always a good thing to do, with your boss and your colleagues, is to say, in my first 90 days, I've got a pretty good grounding on where we need to go, and try to get feedback on that.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing there, isn't it, is that this sort of merges a little bit with when we were talking about the knowledge, right? Is obviously the difference here is when we're talking about creating the master plan in the first 90 days, there's going to be a bit of discovery, and then there's going to be a bit of playing back what you've heard, really, isn't it? And I think that's the important bit, as you say, reporting back, this is the current situation, so you can make sure you're aligned, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
and also like the idea that, you mentioned the interview process earlier. Is some of this is going to have happened in the interview process. That's the start of this discovery process. And also, in some cases, I think you're also asked to consider what's your first 90-day plan, aren't you? In some interview processes, when they ask you, so you're already going to as kind of maybe not hitting the ground running, but you've started that process, haven't you, towards understanding your first 90 days.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Which actually, I think that leads us right to effing fundamental number 2. So, and Ian, you've decided to take this one. So over to you. What is number 2?
I think, well, let's have a conversation about who decided what, though, Jeff. Yes, I am picking up number 2. Our second step in our master plan is to define measurable goals and OKRs, right? And I think I should have included in these notes which episode it was, but we've discussed OKRs a number of times, haven't we?
Which is objectives and key results for those
exactly
new to the term.
It's one of our favored models, isn't it, for goals and results? But there are other models are available. And then we also talked about some of this, understanding the business goals in the knowledge, and we talked about the STARS model and all that kind of good stuff. And this is more about trying to define. And I know that this is all about the master plan, and we'll get to the master plan, but this is about some of those tactical goals that will be in the outcome of our master plan. And it's what we can achieve in the first 90 days. So these are more immediate goals. I'm a bit worried about saying low-hanging fruit again, but I'm not going
to go for it.
Low-hanging almonds. But also, these immediate goals may be driven by a need that was identified in the hiring process. Why is it they're hiring a CMO right now? It might be a startup or a scale-up. Why have they made the change from the previous CMO? There might be, like I say, some quick wins, some low-hanging almonds that need a metric. Or maybe there's a bleed in the business that needs to be stemmed. So it's something that comes out of that STARS model that we discussed last time we were on, which is startup thingy, turnaround,
accelerate,
realignment, and sustained growth.
Scaling. Sustained growth.
Yeah. And if once you've identified that, you may feel that there's an immediate need for more awareness, more revenue, more demand, more education in the market, customer retention, something like that may have come out of these immediate needs, and that's the thing that you need to get to straight away. But also in the spirit of what you were talking about in terms of understanding where we are, we also want to assess the current metrics if they're appropriate to the business, particularly after you've done that bit of knowledge work. And it might be that some things are actually vanity metrics that are a holdover from a previous incumbent or from the way things have always been done. But we need to figure out, is this something that genuinely impacts the business? So that's kind of what I would say is that's where we start off with defining the goals in this first 90 days period.
Right. And yes, and assessing what's being measured, currently is a really interesting exercise, because, you sort of infer this, but is the team measuring the wrong things? Are they too detailed? Are they not detailed enough? Or there's no
Yeah.
backup, or they're not associated well with goals. And I think in your eventual master plan, you want to be able to clearly articulate the relationship between company's business objectives, marketing's actions, its campaigns, its content, its skill building, and the measurable goals, and then the results. I mean, that's the OKR model. And so assessing what's been done so far and why and what's working, what's not working is absolutely essential. And doing that with your operations or analytics team is that's a must do in the first 90 days.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And also I think we talked about this in the knowledge, the demonstration of doing this work and that communication that it sets up with the rest of the C-suite, particularly with the CFO and CEO, and whoever's running the commercial team, CRO or head of sales. The fact that we're going through that process demonstrates some credibility with this group, doesn't it?
Exactly.
And we have to do this in a fairly transparent way. Yeah, so I like that. So that leads us on to number 3, which you're picking up here. Jeff, what have we got?
Number 3 is assess your dependencies. So one of the things, and this was one of the drums we used to beat when I was back at Serious Decisions a lot, is kind of like in that OKR framework, objectives, key results. There's a thing in the middle there, which would be your dependencies. So for me to actually, execute on the activity that's going to get the results that we're looking for, you've got other things that need to happen, right? I mean, you've got, maybe it is a skills issue within the department. Maybe it's processes that are broken. Maybe it's a lack of data. Maybe it's inability to collaborate with other functions. I mean, these are all things that could prevent you and your marketing team for actually executing. So you got to identify what those things are and start putting the plan in place to say how you're going to address those. So, we've got our objectives. We're looking for, here's the actions we're going to put in place. We're looking for these key results. But in order for us to hit those key results, there's a couple things. And obviously, you don't want to create too long a laundry list, or it sounds like you're going, wah, 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 this job's too hard. But there are things that you want to be able to address, and doing a sort of a quick gap analysis, because we love talking about gap analysis about all these things is essential to do. And actually, you may determine that you have a longer term, more thorough gap analysis. Like, let's say there's truly an issue with data. You need to be able to execute on some pretty hefty demand objectives, but it's like you don't have access to the data about who our customers are, or where things, opportunities are, or who's doing what. So there might be something that takes time, but boy, identify that and say, this is what we're going to do to start taking steps to make sure that we put that behind us.
Yeah, I think. Sorry.
The only thing I was going to say, and I don't know if you were thinking about this, but it's like so often, somebody comes in and it's like there's skills problems, right? You need to reorganize your team. You don't have this people that can do this. You don't have people that can do that. And CMOs often go first and foremost to reorganizations and hiring plans and things like that. And sometimes they're trying to hire people in who they've worked with before that they can rely on. And I think that it's just important, not that you don't have to do some of those things, but it's important to say, maybe we do have a lot of the right people, but maybe it's the processes or the relationships, or so there's something else that's not working. Or maybe we need to upskill people that are perfect good people. So I just think that, doing reorgs right off the bat sometimes is not helpful to the execution on the 91 through 360 day.
Yeah. And I think that, there's the additional part of that, which is the agencies as well, because often we have a network of agencies working with us. And there's an assumption that the new CMO will bring in their own agencies and bin what's already happened. And it's almost it's a story as old as marketing is. They'll also come in and want to do a rebrand, right? Which is also folly, right? There's, and it's that idea that you want to put a stamp on, which we don't cover in any of our the first 90 days, when we talk about any of our fundamentals, you don't need to do that, but there is that kind of compelling, unless you do need to do that. I know that's weird.
Well,
Do you see what I mean? Like, unless the brand is absolutely broken or your people are absolutely right, there's no need to just do that by default, I think is the point there. Yeah. And also I take your point there about the fact that we are expressing a lot of things that need to be done in the first 90 days. And so these are what we're talking about here, is they are things that need a bit more time, a bit more considered beyond 90 days. We're talking about doing a quick take, right? So I like that view that you're saying, okay, I've assessed this. It needs a bit more assessment. I need a plan around that assessment, which is what I think you're saying with that detailed gap analysis.
And remember, the first 90 days, this means you're not working. You are working the weekends, right? You've got 90 days. There's no time off.
No. And I also was thinking, as I was considering this point, is, and I've done some of this work in the past where I've gone in and helped to CMO, and we've kind of assessed where things are. I think this is a difficult. I think this is a difficult question, because as a CMO, you want to come in and build your own credibility within an organization. But also, I think if you're an existing CMO who's thinking about these things, sometimes it's a good idea to bring in a sort of a second pair of eyes, isn't it, to help you do this work. And I think this is where there's a judgment to be had about whether you do it yourself, whether you bring in a third party that can be slightly objective or has a different set of experiences to what you've got. So I think it's interesting. Okay, so then we move on to the next topic, which I will hint at, because when I've had CMOs on this podcast and I've interviewed them, this is the top bugbear they have. Even CMOs that are actually in tech and CMOs of tech companies have the problem with this next one. So what's the next one, Jack?
Assess your tech stack. and really, this is another dependency. If you think people, process, data, technology, skills, this is another dependency. But we call it out separately. One, because like you say, CEOs talk about it all the time, but it also has, short and long-term budget implications, as well as, an impact on the success of your plans. It's also what's, typically when you talk about certainly process and data, tech is like an integral part of that in today's business. So, and of course the technology might be creating issues for the team, or the technology you have might be creating issues as well as, solving some. So you've really got to work with your operations team early, I think, to inventory, if this hasn't been done so far, if they can't present you with, here's our inventory and roadmap from last year, then it's like, okay, it's time to do an inventory and assess, where are you? What tools are providing value, what's redundant, what needs to be fixed, whether it's a technical issue or a training issue, where there are gaps that exist, and the gaps might be accessing data or, other things that again, tie to the technology. And obviously what's working, let's not forget the things that, you want to make sure you keep, but, you really want to have the ability to start developing an action plan and looking for, the budget issues, because this is one thing where I just remember, because I did a lot of tech assessments when I was Serious Decisions and Forrester. And so, there were a lot of examples of people who either found new budget or who found issues where they could, sunset one system, consolidate onto another system. And that can have, short-term as well as long-term budget implications. Ultimately, you want your operations team to be able to develop the roadmap of what are all the changes and, going forward. But I think getting this assessment done early, so you've got a good handle on the health of your tech stack, is one of the first 90-day projects.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I also, as I was listening to you there, as I think as well, this might be one of those things that we trigger and start in the first 90 days, but we know that there'll be some initial findings. It's going to take, but you've got to make sure that you've kind of triggered it and got it going with the operations team, that expectation is set of what you need. As you say, if you don't already have that inventory, you really, really need, or inventory, you absolutely need it. And also, of course, this is, we must have done a whole episode on marketing technology before, but this is a hell
I
of a
think we've
rabbit hole.
done more than a whole episode and we've covered many rabbit holes and a lot of low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, but I think we've got all of the low-hanging almonds on this one. So I'd love to. I think that maybe we should chat through this though, because there are some good methodologies, aren't they, for assessing your tech stack and the importance of doing that. And I also wanted to agree with you on pulling this one out as a separate assessment from your number 3, because it is such a significant influencer of marketing behavior as well, because we tend to, and the data that's in there drives our behavior, or the way that the system works drives our behavior, and we shouldn't do that, but it certainly does. Tech just is such a huge shadow. It casts a huge shadow, doesn't it, over marketing?
And in so many companies that I either did assessments or helped with assessments, a lot of the problems were because there have been transitions over time, and they just didn't effectively right size. Of course, right size often implies shrinking, but it really means making sure that the tech stack was working for the team, and so I think this is something, again, to your point, you're going to start it. You may find some low hanging almonds of fruit, but it is something that you may take a little bit longer, and ultimately you are going to want to build up to having a roadmap for how technology is going to evolve over the period of time where you've got a growth plan or some sort of consolidation, some sort of plan that the business is on a trajectory to execute on.
Cool.
So does that come up? Did we come up to the final one? Which I think that I'm gonna bounce the ball back over the net to you, Ian, for the last of our 5 effing fundamentals. For the master plan.
This is our 5th step in our effing fundamental, just to get the terminology right. Yes. Well, the last one is to develop and publish our action plan, which is, I think you mentioned the action plan a little bit earlier, in the fact that we need to show our work, what we've done so far. But we're finally at the bit where we're doing what it says on the tin, planning, right? So we talked about this is the master plan, and finally our step 5 is create a plan. And I've called this the action plans. It's going to need to be somewhat tactical, and I think that's clear from the discussions we've already had about the previous 4 steps. And we'll use the low hanging fruit thing. Although I may edit out that I didn't know that nuts grow on trees. So maybe
you may want to go back. Oh, well, now you got to edit this out too.
Oh, damn it! No, I don't know.
You've done it twice.
Yeah. But this is but it has to be, we're forming the foundations of our master plan, delivering how we deliver both the long-term and the short-term outcomes. So in these first 90 days, we can't just be focused on these short-term outcomes. We need to bring this stuff in. And even if it's like a big Trello board or Kanban board with a backlog, to start there and then start prioritizing. And then you can develop this into your longer-term OKRs. Although obviously your OKRs are also going to come top down, because they're going to be tied to your business objectives. But they'll also come sort of bottom up, because you know what needs to get done within the marketing team, right? And you can create your objectives around that. And the one thing I was thinking about here, Jeff, is that the challenge of the first 90 days, the way that we've set this up, and our fun conversation about nuts and fruit, is that the first 90 days could, if you don't play it well, set in motion the hamster wheel, and we
another excellent metaphor
that we use every week. And looking more long term could become, like we used to have in the CMS industry, the mythical phase 2 of this project, in that we never get to it. And because we never get off the hamster wheel of short-term planning, that short-term planning cycle, and we never get to the long bit. And I think the other risk here is that you don't want to set an expectation of marketing as a service to the business, like short order cooks only serve branded umbrellas. It's a strategic function. And I think if we can you start that long-term investment conversation with the rest of the team, with the rest of the leadership team, you're a strategic partner. If you're only, we need business cards this week and whatever other shit they want, and you're just stuck in that execution, you're never going to present yourself as a strategic partner in the group, are you? Business cards and umbrellas is a silly example, but you know what I mean.
How are you by the way, how are you doing on that business card order? So no, I totally
my to-do list.
Totally agree, and you're right. I mean, the CMO needs to just demonstrate strategic thinking and alignment with what the business needs, to accomplish its goals. So showing you can create and communicate a plan and start to get feedback, a coherent plan is a great step in the first 90 days. And of course, early feedback will help you course correct if necessary, which of course it's always necessary. So, this is, it's just a good exercise to say, here's what I'm seeing now, and let your colleagues and your staff, provide feedback on that.
I've also thought of another analogy, which I used I think I've used it in a post the other day, which is, I think something Mike Tyson said, which is that, you can have a plan, but which works until you get punched in the face. So I think, and that
which is usually going to be from the CMO. From the CFO.
So where we talk about long-term, short-term plans, that is going to evolve all the time. You just need to have this framework in place. The master plan isn't some kind of one and done, follow it to the letter and don't change, right?
We be agile. We be agile, man.
Yeah, how I feel about the agile word. That's agile, small a. Marketing is an agile function of the business. It is not agile marketing.
Well, of course, it could be agile marketing. But anyway, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole.
Do you want to bring it home with the conclusion, mate, this week?
Yes, there's I mean, these are all, components. I mean, the 5 components we mentioned are all the ones that we said are the steps of the annual planning process. So, it's important to, make sure you are demonstrating that you're putting those pieces together and you're communicating your early assessment as how marketing is going to contribute to business objectives. And that's what you're going to be doing. Like, you said, it's a constant process. And so demonstrating your first 90 days only puts you in better position to keep doing that for the next quarter and the one after that and the one after that. And hopefully for the beyond the average CMO lifespan.
Which we hope is longer than 90 days. And also onto that next quarter, which is obviously going to be the most important quarter of the company's history.
Yes. As was the last.
So that brings us to our last agenda item. And I think you're picking again this week.
I am picking. We actually, when we did, I think, the original master plan, we had a long, it's funny that something like planning could have a list of rock songs and hip hop songs that can relate to it. But this one, the master plan, Diana Brown and Barry K. Sharp, 1992. You got to show me, am I part of your master plan? Which is probably what your leadership team will be asking after your first 90 days.
I love this, mate. Yeah, it's a great track, and I'll play out with that. And then next up, are we going to cover the first 90 days of the story?
The story.
Splendid. All right, mate. I'll see you in the studio for that. And we'll chat soon.
Sounds good.
Buddy. Thank you, Jeff, for a tiny snippet of the classic The Masterplan by Diana Brown and Barry K. Sharp there. And weirdly, we were both wrong about nuts, but almond is not botanically considered to be a nut, as it has a fleshy coat like a plum, apparently, according to my research. Anyway, enough about nuts. So that's a wrap on episode 266 of the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast. Thanks to Jeff and his insight, and to you for putting your dime into your podcasting jukebox and jiving along with us. I've been your host, Ian Truscott. You can find links to me, Jeff, and all the things we refer to there in the show notes on rockstarcmo.com, where you can also find our blog, newsletter, and all of our previous episodes. We'd love to hear from you, so please reach out via the website or LinkedIn. Just search Rockstar CMO. I'm sure you'll find us, but please mention you're a listener if you'd like to connect. The next episode of The Rose and Rockstar with Robert Rose will drop on Saturday, and next Wednesday, Jeff and I will crack on with these first 90 days and discuss the story. I hope you join us for both of those here on Rockstar CMO FM.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Hennika Watkins-Porter hosts The Entrepreneurial You, empowering entrepreneurs with insights on leadership, business, and success. Hennika, tell listeners what to expect from your show.
So we provide innovative business strategies and practical solutions to common entrepreneurial challenges.
And where can people subscribe?
Find us at hennikawatkinsporter.com, as well as the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net, or search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.